Good afternoon, everybody. Apologize for the slight delay today. Running behind on my previous broadcast. But welcome to Mythgard in Middle-earth. I am Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, joined as always by my friend Gryfflet, who is attempting kind of vainly to join in this earnest conversation between, these two advisors here in Calenglad, the two advisors to the Brennan. It's I don't think they're really taking him very seriously, but he really wants to be part of things here. Anyway, good. And I was looking at the comments here in the Twitch chat. Nitesh, certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to you and everybody else down there in Florida, as well as, of course, the people in Houston. I know there's been so much happening with hurricane stuff this past week. Just kind of amazing stuff happening, and our thoughts and prayers go out with everybody who is affected by those things. And I hope that we dedicate today's class to the people going through those things. And I certainly hope that we can have a little bit of fun today to help to bring some brightness into a very difficult week. Okay, so Gryfflet is hoping to finish Enidwaith today. Now we have less time than usual, so we're gonna jump right in. So he was supposed to be talking to the Brehures, right? I don't know. I forget what the plural of Brehur is. But anyway, he's supposed to talk with them because we're trying to sort out about we're still trying to figure out about the messenger that we brought in, right? From last time. So let's, okay, hang on. Here we go.
I spoke against the promises of Saruman for many days.
Yeah, you did. That's right. That was a course of wisdom. So you're feeling all smug about this, right? Okay. But Anirin, right? He's the guy that we found in the cave. Brings us hope, right? He will return to Tur Morva with word that Hlanuk also stands against Saruman. Okay. So we're going to have a nice little league against Saruman among the Dunlandings here. That's excellent.
Are all the Vodiards so trusting?
How do we know this man Ergothorn is a friend? Well, I don't, but do you know nothing about him beyond what he wishes to tell you, right? Well, that's true. Yeah, we don't know anything about him. Could be a woman. Agreed. It matters not to you that the messenger in Nirin was found where Ergothorn said he would be. Well, okay, right. But my question is, why does it matter who Ergothorn is? I mean, we're talking about trusting Saruman or not, right? We're not giving any state secrets to the mysterious Ergothorn.
If Morva still stands against a wizard, we must remain strong as well.
That's right. Independent of the identity of Ergothorn, right? That's kind of my thought here too.
The road through Dunland will not be safe for you, no matter the words of Anirin.
Okay, so the Rangers, they're Devodiad, but unlike others, right? Halberd reminds you of Glyn Brennan, stern, willing to listen to the advice of others, given to decisive action. Okay. Know that the road through Dunland will not be safe. It's good that Llw Brennan still stands against the wizard Saruman, but there are other clans in Dunland that do not have leaders as strong, and for them, the promises of the wizard may be hard to refuse. Yep. Oh, don't worry. We'll definitely be wary. That's the plan. Gotta talk to Halberd. Okay. All right. Let's talk to Halberd. I think we're all most of us are in agreement. That one woman is still worried about Ergothorn. But, and again, whatever. I've got some Ergothorn issues myself, but let's try to keep our mind on the big picture here.
I understand. When we depart for Dunland, we cannot let our caution wane.
That's right. No waning caution. The business with Ergothorn's letter drove from my mind the request of the Dunlanding girl. Go to Nonna and tell her that you can't allow her to travel with the Grey Company. Oh, come on. All right, she's here in Hlanuk, and here she will stay. Well, we'll see about that, Halberd. Hi, I'm here to relay Halberd's decision, but I don't really participate in it.
Your leader, Halberad, does not know what he says.
He does. He's just saying a dumb thing. Too dangerous. He is a fool if he thinks I cannot stand with the best men in his company. Yeah, it was a little bit patronizing, Nana. I have to agree with you there. A fool then. We will see who has the greater glory when the tally of battle is finished. It's not just about that. So you notice the irony here, right? She's upbraiding Halbered for foolishness, but her own words are still naive and foolish, right? As if what matters and all that matters is like the battle tally, who kills the most people at the end of the battle. Perhaps Nona of the Ukluth, sister to Wadu, Gwyber's slayer, will in fact see things differently by the time she comes to the end of her journey.
Fools.
All men are fools. No, that's a little hard. Let's not unfairly generalize, unless you're excluding hobbits from that. But okay, Halbrand is a fool. The Brehor are fools for delaying so long in action against our enemies. Your father Silvolk is a fool. He's been avoiding you since Wadu died. And you think he's ashamed to show his face for his cruel treatment of Wadu while he lived. Well, that's possible. That's possible. He should feel that shame. It is his alone. Okay, that's a sympathetic viewpoint. He should have been kinder to his son while Wadu lived. Find him and tell him so. Oh, goody. All right, yeah, that'll go well. I think she's projecting a little bit, right? Like, she knows she should have been kinder to Wadu as well. So, in saying that her father should experience this shame, she's like embracing that shame for herself, and her own deserving of that shame. That's how I read it. She's being harsh with her dad, but of course she's projecting a little bit. I mean, he deserves it, but she's being harsh on herself here too. Okay, Suvok.
What do you have to say to me, Devodiad?
You cannot speak to you of this matter, and neither can my daughter. Well, certainly I can't, which I totally acknowledge, and I feel kind of awkward being made the messenger in this kind of a, in family feud, but I think your daughter kind of has a point, man, I gotta tell you. You only speak the language of battle. What? It doesn't make any sense. You and I will fight hostile Dunlandings of other clans, right? Yeah, of other clans, okay. And we will measure which of us has the authority to judge the other. Okay, so look, that makes no sense at all right? I mean, you are clearly just trying to, this is like a really clumsy rationalization, Suvok. Who cares? Right? Exactly. No, where am I going? Other than the wrong direction. Okay. Who cares how many Dunlandings we kill, right? I mean, that doesn't change the question of whether you did or did not treat your son properly. Guess I should have stealthed actually doing that. So here's Nana projecting and Suvok evading your legs, he says. As if he's aware of the fact that I just cut his legs out from under him. All right, let's go up this way. There's another half-orc. Not interested in the half-orc. Another one. I gotta go around the hill this way? Okay, I gotta go down there. Hello? Dunlandings. There are Dunlandings in the lake? Or in the river? That's what my mini map is suggesting. They're Dunlandings on that far shore. I don't see them. Whatever. I'm going to go to where they might be more populous here. Yeah, Ethelada, I was already thinking that myself, that, I'm not going to go out of my way to kill dozens of these because, seriously, what does this accomplish? This accomplishes nothing. Gryfflet hardly feels the need to prove himself in this way. But it's a little vexing they've got to ride all the way over to where the Dunlandings live. Plenty of half-orcs. If we have to, assert our masculinity by randomly killing things, couldn't we at least make it something a little more local? Like half-orcs? But seriously, doesn't Suvok's response to this just seem completely testosterone-based? Like, you have no right to correct me about this because I can kill more people than you can? I mean, come on. I understand, because that doesn't even make bad sense, right? That doesn't even make sense from the point of view of, like, his culture, does it? What does it prove? That he's a great warrior? Okay. So he's a great warrior. Does that mean, so great warriors don't have to show respect to other warriors? It's okay for great warriors to, like, treat their kids like crap? That's what you're telling us, Silvolk? I mean, come on. Grow up. All right. No problem. Those two are really close together. Try to find one that's a little bit more isolated. Okay. There we go. Man. Let's pick his pocket. Darn! Failed to burgle anything. Okay. Wow. Gryfflet's getting a little OP for this area. Alright. That's good. 2 is fine. Then I can go back and Silvolk can tell me that he must have killed more people than I did. Okay. Then maybe we can, you know, get on to working through his issues here. All right. Wait. Oh, my quest arrow is not pointing to Silvolk, but was pointing back to the Dunlandings. Okay. I was confused for a second. I'm like, wait a second. Did Silvolk move? Was I supposed to meet him somewhere else? No. Okay. Hey, while I'm galloping, would anyone mind if I ranted a little bit? I would kind of like to rant a little bit. Because I've been reading more about the new Shadows of Mordor game, whatever it's called. And I wanted to rant about that. Okay. Wait, hang on. Where is Silvolk? Where am I? Where is Flanuk? Okay. So did you guys read the news about the Nazgul? There was just an interview where they were talking about, like, the identity of the Nazgul. So they've, like, so in the game you're going to meet some of the Nazgul, and they are I think 4 Nazgul, I think, are for to, like, be boss fights in the new Mordor game, and they sort of outed the backstories and identities of some of the Nazgul. And this was really, really interesting to me because, you know, I've been doing a lot of, okay, no, not a lot of, I try not to do much of it. In general, I have, when it comes to Shadows of Mordor, I've tried to adopt it, like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything kind of policy, because I don't have any reason to go around just bashing them all the time. And anybody who plays the game and thinks it's fun, like, I totally don't judge you. Like, it's fine. Like, I hear it's a fun game to play. But I get from my interest in, I am kind of interested in, I kind of like video games. But I am primarily interested in Tolkien video games because as adaptation, like in looking at how they're thinking about the story, looking at the subcreation that they are doing and the relationship between the subcreation of the game creators and Tolkien's own subcreation and the kind of interaction and back and forth between them. That's why I love Lotro as much as I do, because there's so much to talk about there and they do that so interestingly. So I haven't spent a lot of time just bashing the Shadows of Mordor. but I have done a little bit of invidious comparison, and at several points, whenever I have been asked about the Shadows of Mordor and what do I think of it, I usually tell them really bad compared to Lotro, because I don't see anything like the kind of creativity and effort that has gone into thinking about Tolkien's story in Lotro compared to what I have seen of Shadows of Mordor. Disclaimer: I've read a bunch about it. I've seen a bunch. I haven't played the game because I can't bear it. I can't bear it. So, I always want to have like the asterisk. I haven't played it myself, so like maybe things are revealed about it that make the things I'm saying wrong, but I don't think so. I mean, that I'm not going on hearsay, like the stuff that I've seen, and I've seen, video cuts of it, and I'm talking about game content, even though I haven't played the whole thing. But anyway, okay, so the business about the reason I wanted to talk about the identity of the Nazgul, though, is that it creates a situation which is much more directly parallel to the work that Lotro does. Like, that is in the backstory to the Nazgul that is devised and invented by the makers of Shadows of Mordor, we can see them performing a directly parallel sub-creative effort to what we see people in Lotro doing, right? The Lotro developers are always doing that. They're having to come up with sort of backstories and explanations of things that are only hinted at or not explained in the book, and seeing where they go with something like that and comparing it to it. That's really comparing apples to apples, right? So that's the first thing that I was thinking when I was seeing that. So I'll talk to Silvolk here, and then I'll pick my rant back up. Okay. You can't... What? I slew more than you? You only found one? Okay. Hang on. Does he always say that? Am I going crazy? I did this with Wiggins before. And as I recall, when I did it with Wiggins, Silvolk was all like, however many you did, I did at least one more. And now he's telling me I only did 2, and he's telling me I slew more than he did? Does it vary what he says? Is it random what he says? I'm just sorry. Just a little confused. You were over-eager to return and hear my tally. We did it for Wadu, and now his cowardly foes have paid a price for their ambush. Well, that's different. If you're like taking vengeance is a different thing. Okay. Shortly after we returned from battle, one of our rangers spoke to you. He said his name was Roddenir, and he wants to speak with me. He'd be at the Devotee camp among the trees. Okay. All right. Silvolk, now see, notice how Silvolk is projecting here now, right? How Silvolk is, like, the issue was his own treatment of Wadu, right? And how Nana was taking him to task for that. And now he responds by being like, well, see there, we've avenged his death. Which like, okay, fine, like, yeah, but that's avoiding the subject, man. Maybe he sees it as like putting things to rights, but whatever. Anyway, okay. 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 Anyway, let's...
I've been looking everywhere for you.
Oh, another Urgathorn letter. To the Rangers, I do not have much time to write this. I beg you to move with all possible haste. A group of Uruks came out of Dunland, but they began the climb into Thror's Coombe. You fear they have orders, so they're after Nar, you think? Oh dear.
These Uruk sees Nar. He could tell them of our
errand.
Right, yeah, we don't want them to capture Nar because the crazy guy knows things he shouldn't know. Okay.
We have to leave at once.
Let's leave at once. I agree.
We will travel to Zudragun together, and at once.
We will travel together. And then I'll keep ranting.
Once more we put our trust in Ergathorn and travel with utmost haste to Zudragun. Will we find there a band of Uruks, as he says, or a time-wasting detour?
Or a time-wasting detour. Well, I was going to go and check on Nar anyway, so... Okay. Some will be stationed between us and the summit. Okay, so let's go, man. Less talk. More running to the rescue. I'm going to let you go first, Rodnir. It's all right. There you go. Okay. You tank him. Oh, no, they're just going to skip you entirely, huh? That's all right. Yeah, come on, you over here. Hey, I've got inspiration, so yeah. All right. Resume rant. Gryfflet just did like 10,000 points of damage there. That was awesome. Sorry, just distracted by Gryfflet's unexpected. Not used to the whole inspiration thing. Anyway, okay, back to the rant. So, like I said, I find it interesting because it's a really interesting opportunity to compare apples to apples when looking at the kind of adaptation that Shadows of Mordor does and the kind of adaptation that Lotro does. So what do they do? There are... so I only remember 3. Sneaking? Oh, okay, yeah. Hi there. I'm going to be fighting you now. I only remember 3 of the Nazgul. But they're very revealing. And again, what I am interested in, what I would draw attention to is the overall approach that approach to the text that the identities of these Nazgul indicate, right, or betray. I would point in particular to 2 examples. One of the Nazgul turns out to be Isildur. Okay, now let's think about that for a second. Oh, I'm supposed to just go on. You're going to stay here now. Okay. Radonir, you stay behind. I'll carry on my own. One of them is Isildur. So let's think about that. Now, my first reaction, of course, is that this is implausible. Right? It certainly seems unlikely. How did he become a ringwraith, right? Ringwraiths become ringwraiths by having one of the 9 rings, right? Isildur had the ruling ring, and of course he had it at a time when it was quite likely for him to acquire one of the 9 rings after acquiring the ruling ring, right? Because Sauron is like in the business of distributing the 9, and so they've already been distributed, let me just say, right? So historically, it's kind of hard to chronologically work that out. How on earth would he go about getting one of the 9 rings after the defeat of Sauron in the Battle of the Last Alliance, right? When the ringwraiths have already been made for hundreds of years. But like, okay, we can be flexible with chronology. I'm not going to be all like, obsessive about that. But still, like, cause and effect. How does he get one of the 9? Why would you mix up Isildur having the ruling ring, even if you have him giving into the temptation to I don't know if I've got to kill all these guys in order to get through, but just in case I will. Oh, wow. A really nice helmet that orc has. Anyway, okay, so again, like that seems to me a bit of a confusion, right? And that kind of confusion that to keeps the temptation to wield one of the 9 rings, like the way in which the 9 are ensnared by the ring of power, by their rings of power, and the kind of temptation that the one ring brings, and the way that the extent to which Isildur falls under its power, those are not the same thing. Like, that's clumsy thinking, okay, is what I would say about that. But at the end of the day, again, I'm not gonna like cry bitter tears about that either. Like, again, I don't want to be over scrupulous, because when I try to look at it and ask myself, is there anything to be said for it? You know, is there anything to be said in favor of their choice of Isildur there? And my answer is, yeah, there is. Yeah, I could make an argument supporting it. Again, it doesn't make sense from any of the chronology or anything of the book, but like conceptually, can I defend the idea of one of the ring wraiths turning out to have been Isildur in life? Yes, I can. And after I talk to Candaith, I'll talk about that. There are Uruks further up. Okay, right, let's keep going. Whoa! Orcish paratroopers. All right, that's cool. As I say, I certainly can see it conceptually. And the concept is very simple, right? The concept is just one of... the concept is one of the corrupting power of the ring, right? So knowing that Isildur does sort of fall to temptation, right? At least to some extent, that he is being corrupted by the ring. The idea that you would want to emphasize that you would want to sort of shift, because Isildur is kind of held as a hero, right? I mean, he's the heir of Isildur. Even the phrase Isildur's bane tends to make him sound like a little bit like a victim, right? Ooh, hey there, defender of the span. I'm the little billy goat gruff. But my big brothers are not... Yeah, I almost caught the bridge. Okay. This time I'm going to play it a little smarter. Here, my trollish friend. Okay. Ah! I'm going to try to get past you. Can I get past you and fight at you from uphill? I'm going to try that. Hang on. I'll complete my rant in a second. Come on now. Come on. Now that's just unkind. How am I supposed to do it? Okay, so I won't try to go past him. Well, you know what would help? If there were only a ranger or two standing by who could, use a missile weapon while I'm trying to cross this bridge and fight the stupid troll. I'm just saying that in general, in theory, that's the kind of thing that would be handy. What the heck? Come on now. You're just being aggravating. Missed it. You're just prolonging your suffering, Mr. Troll. Surely we can come to an agreement here. All right. I'm going to stun you, Mr. Troll. Take that. Ha-ha! Okay. Oh, you missed, sucker. And... Oh, gotcha. Okay. That kind of interrupted my rant. Okay, Calenglad. You think he was trolling me? Yeah, he was totally trolling me, Melindron. All right. Yeah, I know this way. Oh, dear. You're asking for Nar by name, huh? Now that's interesting. Oh, it's Frithgeir, yeah. Oh, you're helping now, are you? All right, let's do this. Okay, I'll try to resume my rant here now that we're in combat. Okay, so Isildur. I was defending the Isildur selection, or sort of trying to do something vaguely like defending it. So it's, in my opinion, a rather clumsy way to convey the corruption of Isildur. But again, it works to say, like, Isildur is a hero, right? He is one of the great heroes of the First Age. He is like, the heir of Isildur, is the returned king and everything. So, there is a kind of temptation, or a kind of a tendency to look at Isildur as merely, the great hero of old. And so to try kind of turn that on its head and say, no, he was like, he fell to the corruption of the Rings of Power and has been twisted into, even so far as to being an ally of Sauron. That's, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that as a storyline. That seems to me something that can be made to work. Now, here's why I dislike that compared to some similar kinds of stories that we get in Lotro. And of course, the obvious parallel, right? The obvious parallel is... Wait, whom can I attack? Oh, there we go. Line up, orcs, one at a time. The obvious parallel is... so I assume I'm going to... I apologize. Spoiler alert if you've never finished Volume 1 of the Epic Quest. Spoiler alert, but as Gryfflet has already done that part in this broadcast, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. The same thing with Eärnur and Mordorith, right? The fact that Eärnur, the missing king, the last king of Gondor, has become a servant of the enemy, is the perfect sort of similarity, but also contrast to what the Shadows of Mordor is doing with Isildur. On the one hand, they're doing the same thing, showing the tragic fall of a hero of old, and how he has been turned to become the tool, right? Turned to become the... Okay, can I fight somebody? Can I participate? Oh, wait. Oh, Nar has come out. That's what I'm supposed to be seeing. He's going to join in. Oh, that's nice. Can I fight? There, I can fight somebody now. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So, okay. So they accomplish the same thing, but they do it very differently. And the differences are, to me, very indicative of the kind of differences that we can see in the approach between the two games, right? On the one hand, they make that same point without breaking the consistency of the storyline that Tolkien gave, right? They work. Oh, here we go. They work the story. I mean, it's they make Eärnur's disappearance, having gone off, and so that he was captured by the servants of, by the ring wraiths and servants of the Witch King. That's actually like the story in the text. So that he could be twisted. He's not a Nazgul, right? Because in order to be a Nazgul, he would have to have had one of the 9 rings of power, and he doesn't have one of the 9 rings of power. They were already occupied at that time. So he. So again. So they stay within. They stay within the context of the story, because like there's no real reason to break it, right? To say, oh, let's just make him a Nazgul, is to go way over the top. Like, you don't have to do that in order to establish the story. Even though it means them kind of inventing this halfway state, right? The Kargul characters. But that's fine. Like, it works. It makes sense. And better that than to just say, like, let's just chuck out the window, you know, elements of the whole story and chronology that we don't have to chuck out, right? Instead, Lotro chooses to make its story not only consistent with Tolkien, but with itself, like part of that integrated world. I don't know how, like, do they have any explanation for why there are rings of power? There are some of the 9 still in circulation in the Third Age. Like, how does that happen? It does not seem that they have any answer to that question. And the other thing is that it's sloppy. It's thematically sloppy. Like, yes, I'm willing to grant that showing the corruption of Isildur by the ring is a worthwhile story, is like something interesting to talk about. I totally agree that that's something interesting to talk about. But the corruption, like the temptation to keep the One Ring for himself and the desire to take one of the 9 unto himself is not the same thing at all. Like, thematically, they're different. The desire to dominate others versus the desire to have power and eternal life for yourself. That's what the 9 rings were about. And so it's just like mixing. It's thematically sloppy in ways, again, that Lotro tends not to be thematically sloppy. They're thinking through those themes and concepts in much more interesting ways. And then finally, of course, in their desire to have a sort of celebrity Nazgul in Isildur, they completely cheapen the 9 rings of power. Now, this might be, I will put an asterisk next to this particular element of my rant, because this may just be the way that the person who wrote the article that I was reading on this, because of course the game's not been released yet, it might be simply the way that they were phrasing it. But the way that it was described was that Isildur, he's shot, but he's not killed in the river. And before he dies, he's given one of the 9 rings, and that's how he becomes a ring wraith. So it's not even about temptation, right? Like, that it becomes like I don't know, what is it? Like a booby trap or something? Like, if someone's about to kill, like, if someone's unconscious and they're about to die, and you come and you put one of the 9 rings on their finger, then, like, bam, you've wraithified them. Right? Like, it's something that's done to him rather than something that he's done. So talk about messing, like, confusing the theme, right? Like, anything that was gained in talking about the corruption of Isildur is lost by that. Even apart from the impracticality of the situation. Like, what, seriously? The orcs on the Gladden Field had one of the 9 rings of power in their pockets against just such an emergency. Like, but again, even losing sight of that, the idea that, like, the ring of power is merely, like, one of the 9 rings of power is merely a weapon that you use against somebody in order to turn them into a ring wraith, right, is just dumb. I mean, it's just not very thoughtful. It doesn't engage with this. Like, so what does it mean? What are the rings of power about? It muddies everything about the rings of power, as of course the whole concept of the Shadows of Mordor and what the kinds of powers that whatever his name Talion has totally muddy the concepts of everything anyhow, which is what I hate about it. So that's my Isildur rant. But wait, that's only the second worst of them. Though the other one is simpler to talk about and an even clearer example of how much better the Lotro adaptation is. But first, let me talk to Nar. Okay, so Nar's taking credit for that. That's fair. That's fair. I think he died out of fear when he saw you coming. Whereas Thran, he would want the honor of defeating the leader of this band, and it was wrong of us to deprive him of it. Okay. Hey, Coronir, you feeling any better over there? All right, okay, you're getting better. That's good. All right. Nara was acting strangely before the attack. Don't zap me all the way back to... You're going to zap me all the way back to the Grove, aren't you? Yay! All right, one travel I don't have to do. Sweet. Okay, Coronir. Feeling better? A little perkier? Go, hey there, Thror. Okay, there you are, Cornir. Okay.
Once again, Ergothorn has saved us a great deal of trouble.
Okay, right? You don't feel more relieved by Ergothorn's thing. Okay.
Nar became very agitated.
All right, Nar became agitated.
Calm him.
He moved from shelf to shelf in a certain section in his agitated state, and you couldn't get his attention. Okay. So we're going to do some more archival research to try to figure out what Nar was talking about. Okay, that's cool. Upper levels. Got it. Okay. But wait, there's more Rant. Okay, so that's just my problem with the Isildur, or rather, the way in which I felt that their choice of Isildur for the identity of one of the Nazgul really kind of betrays the weakness of their thinking about the books. And really their whole approach to world building in their game. Here's one of the other ones. So did you guys see it? Can you guess which one I'm going to be talking about? Which other one I really hated of their identity of the Nazgul? Okay, sorry. A diary. Surprisingly cold for March. Our friend the Ranger came by again today. Okay. His chief is on some errand to Mirkwood. Finding Gollum, right. Okay, Nar has been in high spirits. I think he likes receiving visitors, though he doesn't always recognize them. Okay, he spends a great deal of time in the mine. Okay. So wow, he's down in the mine, you write in your book. Okay. All right. What's on this nearly empty shelf? Stack of loose papers. Oh, more diary. In the last month, a great number of the supports have fallen, given rise to much concern. A dozen of our stonemasons were directed to repair the supports. You lost one of your own to the Forbidden Halls. Okay. All right. That bookshelf doesn't look all that untidy. The beast returned that night, and the walls all around shook with the sound of its fury. The doors were barred, but the bars bent with each mighty crash. We must return its youngling, cried Sailor over the din. Okay. Old Stonetooth was through the doorway in seconds. Okay. So they had captured Pebblewort, the offspring of Old Stonetooth, and that didn't go well. The dwarves freed Pebblewort from his cage, and many of them ran. Those that witnessed the reunion of mother and child did not survive to tell about it. Okay. They were never seen in those caves again, and none know where they went. It's still said today, when the earth shakes, that Pebblewort is running beneath the mountains, expressing joy at his freedom, carving great channels in the walls of the deepest caves with his golden horn. All right. Are those dragons? Huh. Okay. Anyway, okay. Oh, hang on. So Fairvenin, the Devil's Advocate, was saying, how does what they did with the Ring of Power in Shadows of Mordor, the whole making it into a weapon to wraithify things, how does that differ from the Nazgul trying to turn Frodo into a wraith like them? Great question, Fairvenin. Phil Boswell's already answered, because they used a Morgul sword rather than a ring, of which there were exactly 9. Yes, availability is one thing, but the other thing is totally different. It's totally, but and the reason that it's different, the way in which it's different, is that if Frodo had succumbed to the wound given to him by the Morgul blade, he wouldn't have become one of the Nazgul. He would have become a lesser wraith under their control. Indeed, very like the Kargul that Lotro has created. He becomes a slave to them who are slaves to Sauron. The Ring of Power, they're all of them about power, and all of them involve temptation. Taking up a Ring of Power, becoming turned by a Ring of Power, is about temptation, giving into the temptation to use it, and it keys in different ways, right? With the men, the emphasis is all about mortality and immortality, right? The temptation to get eternal life for yourself. For the dwarves, it's about wealth, right? And we can see some of the, it's like the dragon sickness, but like, more or whatever. The Morgul blade, that is a curse laid upon an enemy, right? The whole point of the Morgul blade is that it makes him into a subservient wraith who will be tormented by his new masters, right? It's not about temptation. It's not about a moral choice that Frodo has made. It is the power. The Rings of Power are about the temptation to dominate. The Morgul blade is an instance, an example of how Sauron and his creatures do the dominating of others, right? It is almost like an illustration of the power of the ring to dominate others applied outwards, right? We know that Sauron has the power to dominate. The creation of the Morgul blade sort of shows one example of how that works and what that looks like. So the victim of the wound with a Morgul blade is very much a victim, and that's what the whole thing is designed to show, right? The power of Sauron and his servants to victimize others. That is not what the Rings of Power are about. And to render one of the 9 Rings of Power into merely a weapon of that kind, a weapon used to victimize somebody else, to essentially take Isildur against his will, basically. Arguably, maybe even without his knowledge, right? Like he thinks he's dying a peaceful death by arrows in the river, right? Okay, not peaceful, but he thinks he's dying a natural death by arrows in the river, and then he wakes up a Nazgul, right? What does that do? What does that accomplish? Again, it's not that kind of victimization is alien to who Sauron is and what Sauron does, but it is a complete waste of the Rings of Power. They're supposed to be more than that. So that's my response, Fairvenin, to your devil's advocate argument. Thank you for that. Phil Boswell, that is only the second worst of the Nazgul. Here's the worst of the Nazgul. Nobody said it. I didn't see anybody say it, so I don't know if you haven't read this at all. But the one that I hated even more than Isildur, Helm Hammerhand. Helm Hammerhand is one of the Nazgul. I'll come back to that. Let me talk to a crazy dwarf first. Hey there, Nar.
Oh, that was quite a battle.
Yeah, you tell Thror all about that. That's it? That was quite a battle? That's what I have to get from you? Okay, Coronir. Nar confirmed that was quite a battle. Okay, let's talk over the diaries.
I don't know what interest Nar could have in these topics.
Me neither. A list of repairs at a dwarf hold in the White Mountains, a page from Frithgar's journal about Nar spending a lot of time downstairs, and the story of some beast likely more tale than true. I can think of no common thread that tie these together. Return to Halbarad and tell him that for now Zudragund is safe and Nar is still crazy. Okay. This is one of those moments that I really wish somebody would set up a stable master at Zudragrund. Helm Hammerhand. Helm Hammerhand. Okay, now, why Helm Hammerhand? Sorry, let me mount up here. Let's not do this at glacial speed. They give a backstory as to how Helm Hammerhand came to be one of the Nazgul. The backstory bears almost no resemblance to the actual story of Helm Hammerhand in the book, and gives Helm Hammerhand a cause of death and circumstance of death completely different from his story in the book. The whole story. The story of the Fell Winter and the siege at Helm's Deep and Helm's forays out by night and him's like stalking around and like, you know, like a troll in the darkness and like a snow troll, and the fear of the Dunlandings and the continued legends that the wraith of Helm Hammerhand still walks and eats human flesh, like all that stuff gone. That didn't happen at all. He just like has a dispute with one of his people because of the marriage of his daughter. So he's given a daughter instead of a son, and his and Wolf is gone. Like they make up an entirely new, like they get rid of the whole story with Wolf. Like the actual story of the conflict with the his half Dunlanding counselor, gone, irrelevant. And they just make up a new story, which bears a couple resemblances to it, like has a few elements in common, but everything about the story of Helm Hammerhand that makes the story of Helm Hammerhand like interesting, characteristic, unique, is removed and replaced by much more vague and less interesting details. I think he dies of sickness or something, according to their story. But anyway, somehow, and there's no indication of how he came by a ring of power, who gave it to him, did he take it up of his own free will or whatever. But anyway, like as he's sort of dying or whatever, he gets a ring of power and becomes a Nazgul. The end. And I have less to say about this. This bothers me more than the Isildur. I mean, like it annoys me more than the Isildur one does. But I have less to say about it because it's so dumb. I mean, I hate to say things like that, but I honestly can't think of any other way to say it. You might say, okay, first of all, again, comparing apples to apples here, right? Can you think of any examples of a character from the books, like a character that's there in Tolkien's story, that that the Lotro developers decided to include in the game, and they include him by name in the game, but they totally change his character and backstory into something totally different from what it was in the book? I can't think of a single character where they make that choice. But see, it's not just about the willingness to make that choice or not. To like, would you deviate or would you not deviate? I'm fine with adaptations that deviate from the text, but what kind of sense does it make? Like, why do you do it? Why? There's got to be a reason to do it, right? You need to accomplish something by doing it. What do they accomplish by doing this? And honestly, I can't understand anything that they accomplish by doing that. There's literally one benefit that I can see to making Helm Hammerhand a Nazgul, and that is that Helm Hammerhand is cool, right? He has a legendary name. His name is awesome, right? And his story is awesome. He's just one of those minor characters of legend who's really neat. So I can totally understand the impulse to say, hey, let's fill that out. You know, we got a really sketchy story of this really awesome character. Let's dig into it. And think of how many times Lotro does that. Think of how many characters you can think of, which are minor characters in the book. Just kind of get a mention, right? And their character, their story, their backstory gets fleshed out, and we get to really like come to really fill that out, round it out, and understand them as a person and get their whole narrative. Hang on, I'm going to pause for a second in this rant to talk to one of those characters. Halberad.
I have bad news. We have found Ergothorn.
Ergothorn is dead.
He is dead.
I'm still
The
suspicious.
scouts of the Occluth.
Probably killed himself under suspicious circumstances. Sorry. Okay. It's funny. I find myself throughout the whole Ergothorn story not really caring about Ergothorn. Everyone's like, but is he like legit or not? And I'm like, I don't care. His information's good so far. Why are you so bothered? Okay, we found his body. How'd you know it was his body? Probably had a note. He was ambushed. He was choked, huh? He was, well, strangled. Wow. Okay, his body's being held in the Hall of Making. All right, I'm going to do a forensic analysis of the corpse. Okay. Okay. Minor characters, right? The impulse to say, there's a story where a character is mentioned and he's really cool, but let's like dig into that more. Let's fill it in. Let's make up some extra backstory. Again, that's a pretty significant percentage of the whole fun of a thing like Lotro, right? So I have no criticism to them for wanting to do that. But then what they do is immediately trash it. Like, why choose Helm Hammerhand to be one of the Nazgul? Because he's cool. Right? So yeah, okay. So let's take him to be one of the Nazgul. And then explaining how he became one of the Nazgul. Let's cut everything that made him cool out of his story. Right? Let's everything that is characteristically Helm Hammerhandish about him, let's remove it. Let's just ditch it. So that we use his cool name, we use his name because he's cool, and then we absolutely remove everything that we liked about him in the first place. Like, is there somebody to whom that makes sense? Right? I don't understand, how you think anybody thinks that way. I'm going to examine the body. Oh, look at this guy. Uh-huh. Full forensic analysis. Yep. Look at his clothing. Everybody can see what he is. He is an ancient Gondorian, right? He's wearing exactly the same armor that we were wearing at the Stone of Erech session play. There you go. So, surprise twist ending with Ergothorn there, right? Turns out he was, what was he, like Minas Ithil gear, Druid's Fire, exactly. So he was an old soldier of Minas Ithil still surviving. That's a twist, right? Didn't see that coming. Armor of Gondor, right? I know, it's throwback. It was throwback day in the Gondorian army. I understand. I'm just teasing. Okay, the dwarf has already told your foe much, and I fear that it will be enough to endanger not just your errand, but the delicate situation in Dunland. Oh dear. Things are not as he thought they were, but they soon will be. What? Pronouns, Ergothorn. He has been slowed by his uncertainty concerning the errand of your company, but not stopped. He... Who? The dwarf. No. Our enemy, I suppose. They who swore the oath to Isildur at Erech, right, which you may or may not have been an eyewitness to. You know of them and of their home beneath the Dwimmerberg. Sure. But you do not know that some number of them sought to flee their curse and came to hide in a place called the Forsaken Road among the Lich Bluffs. Didn't know that. I thought I got to the bottom of the whole Oathbreaker and the Lich Bluffs thing, but I guess there's a separate subsection of them. Sorry, I'm watching my time, Druid's Fire, and make sure I don't go over time. Yeah, okay. Not all remember the old ways, but I do. For Ithil that was lost, and for all else that was forgotten, I remain Ergothorn. So that's why you're wearing your throwback armor, because you remember Ithil that was lost, and your whole cosmetic look there is a like an homage to Minas Ithil. I like that, Ergothorn. Very good. See, I always liked Ergothorn. I always trusted him. Thought that was great. Oh man. Okay, don't know why he was quite so secretive, though. Okay. Sorry. Oh, Ethelod, you have a quick lore question? Okay. What's your quick lore question? I'm pretty much done with my rant anyway. I don't know much else to say about the Helm Hammerhand thing. It's just dumb. Apart from, again, the whole weaponizing of the Ring of Power and you know, like the ridiculous idea of like why again is there a Ring of Power in circulation halfway through the Third Age? I have no idea. But again, even apart from those things, like it just like what sense does it make? What if you're going to make changes? Fine, but work with it, right? And again, it just points to the difference in approach, right? The total difference in strategy. The Lotro people, every time they would take the details from the book and work with that, right? How do you use that and then fill in the empty spaces around it, right? That's the fun. And that's really great. And it's really cool. And they're so creative in doing those things. But to just say, nah, let's pitch it. And especially ironically, when you've chosen this character's name because his story in the book is cool, and then you throw out that story. I mean, honestly, it's just amateur night at that point. So yeah, there's my rant. Again, it's not to say that in Lotro they never deviate from the book. They do. It's relatively rare. Right. I mean, one of the biggest deviations that I've noticed so far has been the Book of Mazarbel. Right. The Book of Mazarbel, of course, is found in the Moria quest line. You find it still there in the Chamber of Mazarbel, where, of course, it's not supposed to be still in the Chamber of Mazarbel. Gimli takes it away with him. Or Gandalf hands it to Gimli, who puts it in his pack, and so off they go. So that's you know, a deviation, and I don't think it's a mistake. They clearly chose to deviate at that point. But again, there's a reason. First of all, it's a really minor thing, right? Because once the Book of Mazarbel goes into Gimli's backpack, we never hear about it again. So it's not like it plays an important role, that it's important that Gimli have it down the road, right? We can kind of take it away from Gimli and nobody gets hurt, as far as the story is concerned. But what's more, there's a reason for it, right? And that is to further the whole plot line of paralleling, the whole, the Iron Garrison story with Balin's people and to enable us to, I mean, hey, like enabling us to read the Book of Mazarbel and do the session play, right? The end of Balin's company. I mean, that's enough justification for me. I'm sold, right? So yeah, again, when they do it, they seem to do it with a reason. Ethelod, wow. Yeah, I agree with Phil Boswell. Ethelod says he has a quick lore question. I agree with Phil Boswell that that's a quicker question to ask than to answer. So Ethelod says, in Mordor, we help an orc. Are they morally redeemable? Whew.
He was unable to
Hang on, just got to talk to Halberd here for a second.
He has done so in death.
Okay. He delivered his letter in death. That's right. That's right. Okay. You believe it is the foe of which he speaks or an agent of that enemy. Okay. I believe now that Ergothorn's enemy is our enemy as well. I believe that too. Now at last it becomes clear whoever killed Ergothorn can move stealthily and strike without warning, but chooses to use neither sword nor bow. If this mysterious foe can move about without the knowledge of his prey, he may have overheard our conversations. Possibly so. Logically, that's conceivable. He, too, speaks with Nar. That could be the source of the dwarf's information, but twisted into a form unbeknownst to Nar himself. Okay, right. I'm with you, Halbered. And it all comes back to the Oathbreakers. Is Ergothorn right? Could they be compelled to fulfill their oath? If we can learn that this is possible within the Forsaken Road, it will be a great boon. Okay, we're going to investigate whether or not the Forsaken can do that. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to stop before I do the... Hang on. Going the wrong way. Going out the back door instead of the front door. Okay. Orcs. Morally redeemable. Okay. The reason I'm hedging on this, Ethelwyn, is that you have touched upon... And this may seem like a simple question. I would actually call this the most vexed question in the entirety of Tolkien's corpus. I don't think that there is a single question that is more complicated, more theoretically impossible to answer than the question, are orcs morally redeemable? Totally understandable to ask that question. The reason that I say what I say is that Tolkien himself was asking that question and never satisfactorily answered it. The orcs are the most difficult, vexed of all the elements of Tolkien's world, of Tolkien's subcreation. The one that I think he was most unsatisfied with, the one that he expressed most frustration with in his later days, the one thing that he never really resolved and got to fit, was the nature of the orcs. Where they came from and what, and it all comes down to that question: are orcs morally redeemable? If they are, then slaying them as enthusiastically and callously as the people in The Lord of the Rings talk about killing them is wrong. It's wrong. That doesn't make it wrong to kill people in battle. Tolkien was comfortable with that, morally speaking. But the no mercy for orcs, we kill them wherever we find them, and consider that a good thing attitude that the good guys have towards orcs in the book, that is morally unjustifiable within Tolkien's world if the orcs are morally redeemable. So for that reason, it's important that they not be morally redeemable. But how could they not be morally redeemable? How could there be an independent race of sentient beings who does not have sufficient free will to be morally redeemable? And that also is a problem, right? Those two things, where could orcs have come from, and do orcs have free will, are the two things that Tolkien never reconciled them, because either one of them gets him into problems, sort of theological issues that he wrestled with a lot over the course of his career. You either have to say they're not real creatures with souls, they were manufactured, right? They're just made up from scratch by Morgoth, Sauron's old boss. So therefore, they're just embodiments of hatred and evil, and so therefore, in killing them, you're just, it's like destroying evil robots. No souls, right? No souls, no free will, no problems. Except that's not how orcs act. They're not machines in any way. Like, you get into the theological opinion that is expressed by Frodo on the stairs of Cirith Ungol, right? Evil cannot make, it can only mar, right? Or Elrond's teaching, nothing is evil in the beginning, even Sauron was not so. There is no such thing as independent evil, and evil cannot create, it can only corrupt. So it can only pervert good things already made. That is what leads to the story that is in the published Silmarillion, that orcs are originally elves who have been corrupted and perverted. So if we want to reconcile it with the second theological point about evil not creating, then we have to make them a good creature which was corrupted. But if that's the case, wouldn't they have had souls? Then what happened to their souls? Elves have free will. Do orcs no longer have? Has their free will been permanently stripped from them in some sense? And again, if so, then we run right back into the problem in the first place. If they're corrupted elves, theoretically, they should be redeemable, right? I mean, at least it might be hard, but in theory, they could be redeemable. So, he never resolved this. Never really resolved this. Never to his own satisfaction. He came up with several theories, but he never really satisfactorily resolved this, and it remains still unresolved. It's still it's a problem. It is the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem in Tolkien's world. So there's no real answer to the question. Is the problem?
Oberon's wishes are my own as well.
Okay, we will walk the Forsaken Road. Great. Let's do that.
You must learn if Aragorn can compel the Oathbreakers to fulfill their oath.
Okay. We will start with that next time, because I don't have time for that now. So that's the non-answer, Ethelwald, to the question. I'm really interested to hear that in one of the Mordor quest lines, you help out an orc. When I get there, I look forward to doing a close reading of that quest line and look to see what the Lotro folks are suggesting about that, because that sounds really interesting and fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and looking more closely at that. I'll totally get there someday. But anyway, I have to run because I promised I would end on time, so that the special stream today can begin. That Cordovan and Druid's Fire, you're co-hosting that, I think. So I wanted to make sure to clear out in time to let that begin. Thanks everybody for joining me today. Sorry I was a little late in coming, especially on a day that I had to leave promptly, but this is not a bad stopping point. So I will begin next week walking the Forsaken Road, and I'll say I should be able to get through the rest of the Enidwaith plot line and move on down into Dunland next time. That's my goal. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Enjoy the special stream this afternoon with Druid's Fire and Cordovan, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye now.